So when you're in the space of spirituality, energy healing, manifestation, I come across different individuals that talks about past childhood trauma. And this is not really a video about how to deal with trauma, but this is a video to share my perspective of how I see trauma. So trauma is very interesting because it could be very small, right? It could be very intense. It could be psychological trauma. It could be physical trauma, right? And this is how I see trauma. It's very interesting because I went to a graduate school that trained psychotherapists, yeah, and I wasn't interested in becoming a therapist, but I studied different things, right? And I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be people who are watching this who might have a different idea, and you're welcome to have your own perspective, but this is my perspective, yeah. Now, my research and interest was on stress because many people who I met through the work that I was doing, I encounter a lot of people who are complaining or not happy about a certain situation, right? So it could be the house, or it could be the work, it could be some life circumstance. But as a result of that, people were experiencing some sort of stress. Stress is very interesting, right? Because for me, the definition of stress is that stress is a sense of threat that arises in a biological level when you perceive something as not safe. Stress is a physiological response, right? The sense of threat that happens at the biological level when you perceive something as not safe. That's what stress is. For some people, stress is overwhelm, too much things to do in a little time. But at some level, stress, psychological stress, not the physical stress when you do things and give a little stress to the physical body. Psychological stress is based on an expectation, right? You have an expectation, and then you have an idea and it's not meeting that idea, but deep inside, because there is a need in wants to be accepted, wants to be approved. There is a need in wants to feel secure, wants to feel certain. There is a human needs to wants to be in control, not to be all over. There's a need to feel connected and belong to. When that gets threatened from the subconscious level, that sense of not feeling safe arises and it appears as a mode of stress. Yeah. Now, that's a little bit of background story of the stress that I feel that is necessary. But the point of this video is to begin talking about the trauma is, for me, an extension of stress. And trauma is a more intense, severe version of stress. That is interesting. This is a little bit, the reason that I wanted to share this way is because when I took a class in my graduate school on trauma, I presented this, that stress and the trauma is the same thing in just a different degree, intensity. And I submitted a paper and the professor said, oh, stress and trauma are not the same thing. And I said, that's not what I think, right? So let me say this, right? So let's say when you drink an alcohol, when you take a sip, right? You feel maybe good and you might enjoy. When you take a glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, you might start feeling tipsy, right? And when you take 5 glasses of wine, you might be sort of all over, right? When you take 10 glasses of wine, now you're hungover and you don't remember, right? So drinking alcohol from, a little bit to a lot, you have a different degrees of experience, and being tipsy and hungover and not remembering is a different intensity, yeah? That's how I see the difference between stress and trauma. Trauma could be small, trauma could be big. I'm talking about psychological trauma. Yeah. So it is ingrained in this idea that the biologically, physiologically, the body is experiencing some sort of threat based on the perception that you didn't feel safe. That's stress and that's also trauma, but different intensity. Yeah. Okay, so that's a little bit of background of trauma. But the point of this video is that many people who have experienced a certain level of intense trauma are struggling and being absorbed by that energy. And when we begin looking at what is happening in our physical life from a perspective of the journey of the soul, many people sort of feel resonated with everything, this idea of everything is happening for a reason, right? On one side, people like to think that way. It sort of feels good to think that way, right? But on the other side, people start thinking that, okay, why? I like the idea that I want to think that way, but I don't like the idea of experiencing that sort of traumatic stuff, right? Because it's not fun and it's painful and it's not expansive. But we must align what we are wanting to believe, right? So if everything happens for a reason, what happened for a reason. And from the journey of the soul, in my understanding, every single thing that happened, let's say, whatever, whoever's watching this, you had your life, how many years you have been living, and you had different phases in your life, and there was a moment where it felt very good, there's different pain, different struggle. I had a lot of stuff, right? I had a lot of injuries in my head, in my hands, in my knee. I had a lot of psychological stuff going on when I was living in different countries, both in Peru. I grew up in Peru when I was living in Japan, Tokyo. But the point is that the one thing that is inevitable and it's true is that you and I are here right now, right? Right now at this present moment. I don't know when you will be watching this video, but right now, as you watch and listen to, you are right here, right now. Yeah. And then the whole life story and history that you have lived, you have an option of choosing to see that as a negative incident and continue to get absorbed by that negativity and the pain, or begin looking back that memory itself and what have happened in your life and choose to see that as a gift and the wisdom, because in this 3D relative realm, there's always two sides, positive and negative. There's always a gift in what you felt pain. Like for instance, I am doing some mode of coaching. I don't really like the term coaching, but that's a term that I use because people kind of understand what that is. And I work with people's journey of the soul. Let's say just called soul purpose coach, right? And I'm doing what I'm doing because of the experience that I have had. Different psycho-emotional pain and struggle and suffering that I have experienced. Many people who become chiropractor or physical therapists, they become one because they have some injuries or they had some injuries in their surrounding. I have had physical pain like a bulging disc, knee stuff, all that physical issue, and I have become somebody who can help others to heal. So when you begin focusing on the pain and the trauma, you might go to this idea and thinking of why this happened to me. But then when you begin shifting your attention to the understanding and what you receive from that experience, now you start realizing that you have a lot of things that you can give to the world because you have gone through that experience. And it's vital to begin choosing that perspective by looking back. And another thing about, trauma, stress stuff is very interesting, because let's say we're talking about psychological trauma, right? In psychological trauma, we felt what we felt based on the awareness that we were in back then. Let's say that happens like 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? Now, your awareness and the perspective and life understanding is must be different from 10, 15, 20 years ago. But the feeling and the pain is nested in the subconscious mind, the body. So it appears as a feeling and emotions, but until we reconcile and revise that internal experience with the new perspective, it will remain as the feeling based on the past perception. So we must do a little bit of work to meet that health feeling inside with the awareness that we're in. And then we must understand that every single pain that we go through on life on earth is a gift and the wisdom that we are receiving to express and give and serve and help others. The moment we begin turning that attention to expansion and moving away from contraction, your life becomes suddenly meaningful, because you had that experience, you're here who you are becoming. And then, I have come to this conclusion that we are all here to cultivate our innate gift and then use that gift to illuminate the world. Now, unless you have that contrast, negativity, pain, and what we think is a trauma, we might have not arrived to cultivate the gift. So can we be in gratitude of the fact that we have been able to cultivate the gift? And now what we want to do is to turn that pain into an expression to serve the gift to others, because there are a lot of other people who have also gone through that, who needs your help. And that help could be, a personal connection, or you might turn that into some profession, or whatever that you choose to be. But this video, I just wanted to anchor this idea that is the soul, the perspective, and the journey of the soul. Every single pain that we go through in this physical life, the soul is designed to go through so you can wake up into cultivating the gift to serve and touch others. And until you choose to see all the pains that you have had from that perspective, you will forever be a victim of your own story, and your life will remain contracted. But when we begin choosing the perspective or see our past, present self from the lens of light, from the lens of expansion, from the lens of meaning, from the lens of the journey of the soul, the truth, the very truth is that you and I are here, and we can choose to see that as a cultivation of the gift to touch others and illuminate the world. So you might need a little bit of journaling or processing. You want to have a little bit of accountability and support, but see if we can begin shifting the perspective, revising the internal health feeling, and begin focusing on what is the gift in this, and how do I want to utilize this to touch others and illuminate, and use that begin feeling the lightness and the opening in your path, and your energetic begin shifting into an expansive state. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.